Here's the new Model T, and I'm looking to put a different head gasket in it, obviously because it's gone. So I went across the whole thing. It seems pretty flat. Took some light sandpaper and cleaned it up so that there was some paint on here. We're taking it apart and painting it at the same time while we're doing it. Back in here, this seems really thin, but I guess it's kind of low compression, so I'm not overly concerned about it. So I kind of sanded the whole thing off. There's like a number 1 stamped in here, and it looks like maybe an X over here. Don't know what those are for. I also don't know what this thing is going through in its entire life. Valves look good. There's no ridge or anything on these cylinders, so everything there looks good. So everything seems to be like it'll be in good shape there. And go over to show you the head in a second here. So here's the head. Did this, what I started out with, I scraped off all the paint, so when you put the bolts in, that it'll be smooth. I also took a file and just touched the underside of all of these. If I can get it to focus here for a second. There you go. So I just kind of touched the underside just so that if there wasn't a little crown or something sticking up there, that would have caused it to dig in instead of going to full torque. Flip this over. I did the same things I did to the head. Or sorry, as I did to the block. Just kind of went over it and sanded it all off smooth, so there's no paint or any corrosion or anything on there. Gigantic combustion chambers. But other than that, put a straight edge on it, just quick and dirty to see that it was all flat. So the next step would be to put it together with the gaskets. It's also important, these back two, these are the two that go towards the cab or the people compartment. These two you can't get in once the head is on, so make sure those are in there before you carry it over. So I've been just leaving them in there just to make sure that I don't forget them. And this one here is the one where the horn bolts on, so I got to make sure I do that as well. So when I get over there, I'll show you guys what that looks like. Head gasket kit, East Shore Precision Part MT100. Here's kind of the instructions. Pretty much says clean it, wipe it down with some mineral spirits. Head bolts, I've already cleaned those up as I mentioned before. I'm going to put the gasket on now, and then put the head on, and then I got to make sure I put that horn bracket on. And then here's the torque sequence, and he's got a 2-stage torquing, 25 and then 40 and then 55, so I guess 3-stage. So we'll get that set up and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So it is marked as head side. One thing to make sure if you're not using this type of gasket is this end is different from that end, even though they look like they're the same. So he's got this one marked head side. The instructions also don't say, I think I'm going to try some of this stuff. You're supposed to spray it on both sides of the gasket according to the instructions in the back. So I'll spray the whole thing, let it dry off. I'm going to coat around this area and that area, just because I don't want to have any leaks. I've got some ultra black Permatex. Here goes nothing on the spray painting of this copper gasket sealer stuff. Hopefully this will be halfway easy to see. So I get a nice even coat. Never used it before, so I'm talking like I know what I'm doing, but we all know that's not the case. Just want to put a nice light coat on. Even coloring. Both sides. Like I said, the instructions didn't say anything about this, but I don't know. Seems like a good idea. You guys can kind of see both sides, copper and color. In my never-ending quest for more and more crap, I got this Permatex high-tack gasket sealant. And what I'm going to do is paint that. It's supposed to be for threads. I'm going to paint that on the top, let's say 1/4 inch of these threads. And then the rest of this is going to be dipped like in engine oil for the threads. So that way that'll seal up. If anything is coming up through the threads, it should seal up right on the top. And then I've got the oil on the bottom. And then, like I said, around the water jacket passages, I'm going to throw some of this ultra black, real thin coat on there, and then put it all together before it dries off or cures up. And I've got my crow's foot wrench set, so I can get at those 2 bolts in the back side here when they're by the engine, by the cab, I'm sorry. Then I'll be able to torque those down. So adjustment, the bolts only stick out that far, so I'm going to move my sealer up about a 1/2 inch from the bottom. The rest will be oil. I put some of this ultra black around all of the water passages. I'm going to go slap it on. So it gets a little hairy around this backside here. You got to be careful about, I had a double extension on here to get the crow's foot down in here. And you got to be careful you don't break off these porcelain connectors. So if they crack and short out in the near future, I'll know it was my fault. It's going to be good to kind of try to show you what I was talking about with those. So here I've got the crow's foot down there. And as this swings around in an arc, you got to be careful you don't hit those porcelain ignition coil box points. This one and the other one, I actually had to pull. These two back ones are, get this out of here, are the hardest ones to get at. You gotta take a second. I can only do it with one hand here, so, but those back two are the ones that, if you look straight down, that's where you have the issues. So you gotta kind of get over there. And maybe, I think this is about a 1-inch crow's foot, so that it's a 1-to-1 on the torque wrench. Maybe if you made your own that was 2-inch, or if, I don't know if you can buy them longer. I'm sure you can. I've had these for years, so I used what I had. But so that was the concern in the back too. But I got them torqued down, so should be good. So anyway, got them all back on. Went up to 50 foot-pounds. The instructions say clearly 55, but I got scared and just did it to 50, which seemed, with all the lube I have underneath the threads, on the threads, everything's cleaned up. I don't think there's going to be any issue with it being, you know, loose or anything. Got the horn on here where it needs to be, roughly. Ended up taking, this one's got a water pump, which sits right back in here. I'll put that on later. This bracket was the other way around. The horn is supposed to sit kind of down in that area, because this is just supposed to be a neck that comes out, but the pump comes out too far. So then, anyway, took the bracket off, flipped it upside down. You can see this was the part here that I had sanded off. It was on the horn side, so I get a good connection. Also, like I said, I sanded all the tops of these, so this hopefully has a good ground. But anyway, flip this bracket around. So same exact original bracket, just flipped it up, so now it's upside. Put it here. I think that'll be okay. I guess we'll find out when I get the rest of it put together, but there's not a lot of other stuff in the area here. So anyway, head's back on, torque down. Now I'm going to work on the valve cover gasket and then the exhaust and intake manifold gaskets. Stuff, I put it on the copper rings, and these are the steel spacers. They go, I clean these out too. So they go, the steel spacers go into these little slots. The copper's on the outside. Hoping that the sticky nature of that's going to help me. Same thing for the exhaust manifold. They're all the same. Painted with some heat paint, so now I'm going to try to get those sticky pieces in there and try to get them all together at one time. My normal overthink everything way of doing things. I've got the slots and all those steel spacers pointing mostly down. So I think this will work. I'll put these in here, and they're kind of sticky with that copper stuff on them. And then I'll put the copper O-rings around them, and then kind of set the whole thing up there. So same thing with the intake, and then I gotta put it all at the same time. So far, so good. They're sticky. I think they're gonna stick on there and not fall out. I can see if you didn't have this stuff on there, how it would be a problem. So the hardest part now I think is getting both of these up there, and then putting. This is what holds them on. So these little brackets on here go across, and then that holds the intake and the exhaust on. Like I said, I've cleaned all those up, so I'm hoping everything kind of, I think getting the steel to align in these might be the next hard thing to try. So I'm going to put the exhaust on first, try to get it to fit up there, and then move on to the intake. So again, what I'm going to try to do is get all of these little things to line up. Let's see here, I believe it goes this way. Kind of set them close. Oh yeah, I can see this is going to be a pain in the butt. Massive pain in the butt. I wonder if putting them on the engine side first would be a better idea. Okay, that one kind of stuck on there. Oh yeah, that's going to be, that one's in. Oh, looks like that would actually, it's not going to be too bad. Promise I'm only going to hold that while I put the next ones on. That is the issue. Maybe a clamp of some sort. Find myself a quick grip clamp. That's why you guys come here. See me fail. I don't know if it'd be better to put it in the engine side first. Try that on a couple of these, see if that works. Try to wear out all of my stickiness that I sprayed on these things. Alright, we're going to try it this way now. I'll fail so you don't have to. Okay, so those are all in. The stickiness does still seem to be helping. Now I see why all over the internet it says it's really hard to put these on. This front one is in. This back one not so much. It looks to me like they're all like started. But started and on are two different things. You can tell, but I really like that idea to work. Okay, we'll hold that for a minute. It'll all fall on the floor, break in little pieces. Can full of nuts. So I think we'll be in good shape to get these things started. Get my stupid clamp off here. Looks like everything's in the hole where they're supposed to be. I'm gonna get some anti-seize just because I love that stuff. This probably isn't even the right. This is Easy Break. This is some off-branded anti-seize type material. There we go. Oh, that's way nicer with some anti-seize on there. Alright, now I think I can take this clamp off because these other ones seem to be okay. And this is the one that needs the. Went and grab some stainless steel washers. One of these stainless steel ones is kind of thin, so maybe put that back in there. I think that would do it. This old rusty nut on. A little bit by hand. See if I can get you guys up there to see what's going on here. So looking, flashlight here. Looking straight down. So there's the copper O-rings and you can see the steel. I want to kind of see the steel in behind there. So the steel makes like a little tube, a port, and then the copper, once I tighten this down, is supposed to seal everything up. So from what I can tell, those are all in where they're supposed to be. And now if I just tighten this other stuff down, we'll be in good shape. These here are some of the old ones that came out, and if you look, I had one that was leaking, and I'm pretty sure it was this one here. So what they must have done was it went in there, and then let me get my hand here. It went in, and I think they somehow didn't go in correctly on both sides, so I'm going to make sure I double check everything about 100 times before I crank these down. But I don't know what the torque is supposed to be, but I torqued them down to 100 inch-pounds each, and it looks like they're fairly evenly squished down. I figured, well, if I can run it, and then I can get it hot, and then potentially to get the radiator and stuff back on, then I can put it back, get it hot, and then torque them back down again. I'm gonna have to do something else down here too. This doesn't seem like it's aligning quite right. I could put a hose or something on there. I don't know what's supposed to be on there, but I'm gonna take a look around what I have for some hose, and I can make it look like it's halfway original. One more little bonus for you guys. Let me see if this will work here. Turn the lights on, and then head to the back and show you my fancy new light. So what that is a kerosene light that I've actually modified. I'll pop the inside open and show you. Modified the inside. So I bought this little holder, and then mounted that in here so I can put a bulb. And this is a dual filament bulb, so when I eventually get a brake light, a brake switch in there. But it seems pretty bright. And then it's got the little dealie over here for the license plate. And then I put a screw right here because I don't want this bottom. This is where the kerosene generally goes. So I ran the wire in of the backside where your little knob usually is to adjust it. So I just didn't want it to fall off. So now it's solid, doesn't come off. But yeah, so that's kind of the update of the Model T. We'll put the radiator back on and then be back in business for next season. Have fun, guys.